I don't see our chair, do you guys?
Michael, how come you're listed as town of Shutesbury?
Um, because I ran an ECAC meeting yesterday and I think I logged in using that account. So thank you for correcting me. Um, what name should I pick, Steve?
Michael works.
There we go.
Are we waiting on anyone, or have you called it to order, or no?
No, you're the chair until you make me chair.
All right, all right. I see we have a quorum. I'll call this meeting of the Shutesbury Planning Board to order. I'll note that the meeting is being recorded. Obviously, we're gathered here today for an agenda item that Michael has worked very hard on as being designated chair. For all things related to solar bylaws, response to Attorney General decisions, and various uh, legal actions. So I'm going to ask that Michael act as chair for the duration of this meeting from here on out.
Thank you, Nathan. Happy to do it. Good to see everybody. See Jeff Weston's calling in from California. Glad you can make it, Jeff. Um, so I was just going to do a couple of things on the front end, just for planning board members. I wanted to just remind you guys or tell you guys that we can't share any information from executive sessions. So that would include content of negotiations and the mediation sessions, as well as any deliberations between the planning board and the select board. So just try to be cognizant of that. And then since we have participants from the public, I just wanted to basically say that when you ask a question, make a comment, if you can identify yourself and just let us know if you're a resident of Shutesbury or not. I don't think we're gonna have a time limit on questions, but keeping it brief. And then in terms of logistics, this is a one agenda item meeting. It's just an update on the solar litigation and then questions and answers. And I was thinking for logistics, what I want to do is give an update. And the reason for doing it is, in this context, is the town council basically said that we need to do it in an open meeting. So I thought I'd give you guys the update, then open the floor for questions and comments from planning board members, and then after that, questions and comments from the public, so that it's really an opportunity for everybody to get on the same page, not have a rumor mill, not have disinformation, and have transparency. I think that's the goal. So how's that sound? Good to everybody? Cool. So, the the first thing I was going to share is just the timeline. So how things evolved. So around August 8th, I actually don't know the date, but I think it's around August 8th. Both plaintiffs, Pure Sky and Coles, reached out to our two attorneys. So Pure Sky reached out to Adam Costa and Coles reached out to Donna, and both said that they were interested in dismissing the case. Pure Sky, I know, said they were interested in dismissing with prejudice, without prejudice, which I'll get into in a second. I don't know if Coles is that specific, but I would assume that they made the same request. So planning board knows this, but for the public, for the lawsuit was against the town. Since the select board is the executive body for the town, they're the entity that actually gets sued and therefore makes the decision. So once the lawyers convey it to the select board, the offer to dismiss the select board met. And I'll just say, for the planning board, since we've been this before, and then for the public who probably has not, what we've learned in this process is that when one party makes an oral offer, if the other party accepts, it's a done deal. It doesn't have to be in writing. It doesn't have to get signed, anything like that. It's just sort of automatic. So that's contrary to, I think, what most of us would assume. So basically, Pure Sky and Coles put an offer on the table for the town to dismiss without prejudice. And so it's up to the town to decide what to do. So in this case, the select board. So the select board met on August 13th to figure out what to do. I was invited, given my involvement, to chime in. And at that meeting, the select board decided to accept the offer as is, to dismiss without prejudice. So they basically just said, yes, we're taking your offer, we accept it. So the following day, August 14th, what ends up happening is, and some of you may have seen the document, but it's called the stipulation of dismissal. And basically both parties, all of the plaintiffs, there's actually a bunch of parties. So on the plaintiff side, there's Coles, and then there's an LLC for each of the 5 projects. So although we're referring to Pure Sky, there was actually a bunch of plaintiffs, but their lawyers signed on behalf of them, our lawyers signed on behalf of us. It stipulates that both parties agree to dismiss without prejudice. That happened on August 14th. And then also on August 14th, the case got closed. So that's sort of the timeline. And then I think it was the next week that the select board's email went out. So does that make sense so far? So I'll just give you some things to know, and then we can see what planning board members think. So the big thing is there's 2 options in dismissal. There's to dismiss without prejudice and to dismiss with prejudice. Those are the 2 options only. So dismissing without prejudice means that the parties can come back and refile at some point in the future, where if you dismiss with prejudice, it means they can't come back. It's just a done deal, and it's over. So we got an offer to dismiss without prejudice, leaving the door open for them to refile, and the town accepted that. So that's the difference. It's all terms of art in terms of legalese. It could be that either Pure Sky or Coles decides to refile, but the important thing, and I'm like 99% sure because I checked with Rita to make sure that she heard the same thing, but if the plaintiffs wanted to refile, they don't start where they left off. They have to submit a new complaint and start the whole process over again. So that's a key difference. It's not like, oh, we're going to just sort of step back in. Mary Lou, you missed the beginning, but I'm going to have questions and answers for the public at the end, so just hang tight. So let's see, there's that. I think one of the questions would be, do we know why Pure Sky and Coles offered to dismiss? And the lawyers were not told directly, and therefore they had nothing to tell the town. But I would say this is just my conjecture based on the reading of the landscape. There's sort of 3 things that are happening. So federal policy is actively antagonistic to solar and wind, which for the world is a bad thing and for the country is a bad thing. But in terms of this legal case, it probably made the calculations about a business plan change for Pure Sky particularly, because Coles was just leasing the land. The state smart regs, the 3.0, went into effect on June 20th. And I think everyone online probably knows, but there were 5 sites that were considered to be developed. And with the smart 3.0 regs, 2 of those would have been ineligible for subsidies. So what we were always told is that they need 5 sites to make this viable from a business perspective. So they only would have gotten subsidies for 3. And then the last thing is the state clean energy regs. From my personal read, are approaching more of what Shutesbury solar bylaw looked like in terms of protectiveness. So, and those go into effect March 1st, 2026. So I think collectively the landscape is changing, but that's conjecture, not fact at all, because we don't really know. And then the 3 last things I would say, in terms of the Shutesbury bylaw, since the case got dismissed, our 2021 solar bylaw, which is in effect now, remains in effect. So it stood, it continues to stand. There's no anyone questioning at this point. In terms of how that relates to the clean energy regulations, the state regs are going to go into effect, like I said, March 1st. My understanding is that anything that does not directly conflict with the state regs when they come out will remain viable. So, if we have, for example, some contingent of our solar bylaw that's not addressed or is not in conflict with the state regs, it's in effect. And so we are going to be, as the planning board for the town of Shutesbury, if we had a special permit for a solar project, we would be regulating it. We would regulate based on the guidance of DOER, unless there were things DOER didn't cover, in which case our solar bylaw would be there. So the fact that our solar bylaw is still standing is actually pretty significant in that regard. And then the last thing, which is sort of a little wonky, but it came up in an email exchange and it's worth noting, is that sort of circling back, we've had all these executive session meetings to figure out what to do and to share information, et cetera. I'm pretty sure we're going to need guidance from town council about releasing the minutes from the executive session. So, the idea is when executive session minutes stop fulfilling the need of privacy, then they're supposed to be voted and released. But because this is dismissal without prejudice and we could get sued again, there's strategic information in those executive sessions that probably should not be released. So it's something Mateo and Nathan and I shared emails to try to figure this out, but I think it's subsequently something we'll bring up with Donna. So that is all that I have to share. And anyone on the planning board have questions, comments, etc.? Okay, that's quiet. Cool. I'm glad I answered everything. And I did say this is going to be a 30-minute meeting, so we actually might achieve it. We'll see how that goes. So being that the planning board doesn't have any questions, I guess Mary Lou, you could be the first. If people can raise their hand just so I can see, and maybe Mateo, you can help me. So because we actually have two screens, but Mary Lou, you want to just identify yourself and then come off mute?
Hi, yes, my name is Mary Lou Conca. I live on Wendell Road, and I have a couple of questions. So I'm going to start out with, you were saying the town decided to vote that way. And by the town, do you mean the select board? And about that vote, to me, as a layperson, it seems like you're giving them a second chance. Like, why didn't you vote? Why didn't the vote? I don't know why it didn't involve the whole town, first of all.
Well,
And second, why did they vote that way? All right, I have another question too.
all right, let me answer that one first.
Thank you.
So the select board does represent the town. They're the executive body that's elected by residents. So they're the official representative for the town, and they're the ones who got sued. So it's the select board who makes the decision how to proceed and has been making decisions. And so the planning board has been part of that, but it's really the select board's responsibility to deal with that. And then I think just, not to get into the executive session part of it, but what I was saying is that what we discovered on the planning board is that when a party extends an offer, you can do one of two things. You can accept the offer as is, in which case it's accepted and it's a done deal, or you can either refuse it or, come back with a modification. But if you do that, then it's not a done deal.
Right.
And I think the idea was we wanted to get a dismissal. And the point is they can come back, but they have to refile. So this case got filed in 2023, so it's already been 2 years.
Okay.
So it's a lot of administrative activity and cost, et cetera. So Mary Lou, why don't you ask the second question, then we'll go to Jill.
Okay, all right. I think you kind of did. When you say we have had executive sessions and you're talking about them now that they're going to be released to the public, who are the we? Were you, was planning board part of executive session? And Michael, if I may, the whole town was sued. Our taxes I'm paying for this suit? Maybe I'm misunderstanding. I mean, the three individuals who represent us are footing the bill?
Well, we elected them, and that's how it works in America, that we elect our representatives. So this is just sort of the way it is. It's
Right.
not getting into the philosophical part. In terms of the we, I'm referencing the planning board because it's a planning board meeting. But the planning board had executive sessions to understand what was going on and to figure out what we wanted to do, and to share information. The select board had their own executive sessions, and then collectively we met sometimes together. And I didn't say they were going to be released anytime soon because I think that's up for legal consideration. So, but Jill, go
Thank you.
for it.
So I really first I just wanted to express like my sincere gratitude to you, Michael, and to the whole planning board for your incredibly hard work and persistence in, just sticking with this and following it through and being very hardworking and just on top of all the complications of this. This is not easy, and it's really a labor of love and care for our community and our region and the state and all of the people who will be affected in the future. So this is really significant, not just for Shutesbury, but for many other towns and many other areas who could be facing the same kind of lawsuits that are really unreasonable for towns that can't afford them and have to depend on very smart, very capable people to stand up for their town. So I just wanted to first say thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to just ask you, and I don't know if you can speculate on this right now, but what are the implications of this decision or this, situation for other communities, and how this may affect how this plays out throughout the state and elsewhere?
So it's 100% speculation, and I'll keep it short just because of that. I mostly want to just keep it factual, but I think we don't know the reasons, as I mentioned, for why we got offered dismissal, but the plaintiffs said they wanted to dismiss. They're, as you know, they're a big international energy corporation, so they have money for lawyers, and they could hang in much longer than the town could, because we have less money. So I think there's probably business decisions, and it's the three things that I talked about. So any municipality in Massachusetts is probably looking at the same kind of dynamics with their developers. There's the federal landscape and the state landscape. I think what's worth noting that's different here with us is that one of the quirks of Massachusetts law is, I'll just speak for myself, I've always understood that, like, in America, you can sue if you've been harmed. And in this situation, Massachusetts allows landowners, and I think by extension, developers associated with land, to sue preemptively for potential harm. So the select board never received any special permit applications for any of the 5 sites. So the idea was they were basically saying, we're thinking about applying and we haven't yet, but your bylaw is making it so that we think it's, goes against state law. The difference with other municipalities is they're facing an actual project with a permit situation there, and it's a different dynamic. I think the business plan issues are the same, but I think how far into a process an entity it is might inform their decision. But I think we're the only ones that I'm aware of where we're getting sued on the solar bylaw as opposed to an actual project that's in play, so to speak. So does
Well,
that
it's
help?
encouraging to hear that what I believe you said was that the bylaws that are in place in towns and communities or municipalities will be upheld as is moving forward with the DOER regulations moving forward for, smart regs and others. So,
Well, the caveat is, I mean, DOER on March 1st will have new clean energy regs, and so we're going to have to comply with them. Every municipality will. But the two things that are of note is that if there's something in our bylaw that doesn't conflict with the state regs, then we get to regulate with those bylaws. So there's like a sliver of our bylaw that can
okay,
remain.
so it's not to say, you're not saying that that those regs are like, that our bylaws will trump those regs. You're just saying like where there isn't conflict, there's gonna, the bylaws will hold.
Correct.
Okay.
And I'll just say for Steve's benefit that he likes saying prevail.
They will prevail. Thank you.
Steve, you're muted.
Actually, it's unprecedented, takes precedence over.
Okay.
That's the term.
There you go. And then the other part that I just wanted to mention, oh goodness, I just forgot what it was. Oh yeah, the other thing is the basis of the lawsuit was that our bylaws, municipalities are allowed to regulate if they're protecting reasonably for public health, welfare, and safety. And we were basically getting sued because we went against the solar exemption state law. The clean energy regs and the statute behind that explicitly say that municipalities, if they're go with the DOE guidance, are complying with the solar exemption. So we can't get sued for that anymore. And no municipality has a choice whether they go with DOER or not. So we're all going to do it. But once we start regulating consistent with DOER, we're protected from that kind of suit anyway. So Sharon.
Hi there.
Hey there.
I want to echo Jill in expressing appreciation and maybe go a little step further, being more specific, because I know that you and all of the planning board spent a tremendous amount of time in executive session, going to meetings and thinking about things, and also preparing for the trial in November. And my understanding is that you were very, very well prepared. And I heard when you were speculating about the reasons why this might have been dismissed, but you left out that maybe you did such a good job preparing for the trial that that was a discouragement. And I really want to, bow down for the effort you guys have put in on behalf of our health, safety, and welfare. And also, it's my speculation that there might have been pressure on the planning board to agree to or be supportive of settling and giving concessions that might have threatened our health, safety, and welfare and our forests. And you guys didn't do that. You instead you stayed committed to fighting for our community and didn't give in to pressures that I speculate might have been there. Um, and I'm just so grateful. My heart is overflowing for the work and attention and goodwill towards our community that you guys put in. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. One thing I will say that's I'm just appreciating in terms of the landscape. I think the clean energy regs are moving closer to where Shutesbury's solar bylaw is. So we have a good bylaw. we did some good thinking. The state's catching up, just took them a while. So anyway, any other questions or comments? We might actually get in under the 30 minutes, which would be amazing. Cool. So hopefully, I think, for the planning board, we'll have our regular meeting on September 8th, I think it is. And I doubt we have to talk about this. So, but just wanted to make sure everyone understood sort of the process and what the implications are. But, bottom line is we have a solar bylaw. I'll say one other thing, just, and then to sort of along Sharon's point, because I think back to the town, this is a thank you to the town. It was huge. The town meeting voted to have additional legal fees. Because that sent a message that as a town, we wanted to support our solar bylaw, that we believed in our solar bylaw. And, I think that was an important, if that did not happen, it would have changed the dynamic. Although, no one can prove it, I think it was significant. So thank you to everybody who did that. So I think with that, anyone want a motion to adjourn?
Before the motion adjourns, could I say something, Michael?
Sure, Jeff.
Thank you. I just want to appreciate your leadership and guiding us through all of the very challenging decisions that these decisions could have had very negative consequences, and the decisions ended up being exactly what done. So thank you so much for your leadership in guiding the process. I also want to do a shout out for the select board, because they could have at any moment shut everything down. They could have said, no more money, no more attorneys, we're settling, and they did not. So a shout out to you, Michael, and a shout out for the select board for listening to, following their own feelings, listening to the planning board, deliberating among themselves, deliberating with us. And then I think what allowed this to happen was the unified position of the select board and the planning board against this multinational corporation. And it was real teamwork led by you, Michael. So thank you so much.
Well, I'll just thank the planning board because, it was totally a team effort. We spent a lot of time together, many late nights. Nathan, you want to say something?
Yes, I would just like to thank you again, Michael, for serving as chair and being designated to deal with all this stuff and doing a fantastic job with it. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you. Glad to fill in your shoes.
You've done a
So,
great job.
you want a motion to adjourn, Nathan, while you got the floor?
Yeah, why don't you ask? I'll move to adjourn.
In a second?
I'll second.
Okay. So, any other discussion before we adjourn? Okay, we're coming in at 6:29. This is cool. Okay.
Mhm.
Ashley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Steve?
Hi.
Steve? And let's see, Nathan, where'd Nathan go?
I'm here. Aye.
And I'm an aye, and I think that's it. Beacon is not here, I don't think. So we are officially adjourned. Good to see everybody, both on the planning board and public, and see you around.
Good night,
Thank you,
all.
Michael.
Excellent.
Thanks, everyone.